Houston's Third Ward is one of the city's most historic black neighborhoods. It's also the site of longstanding and consequential debates about gentrification and redevelopment. Rice University's Ion District, for example, which borders Third Ward in Midtown, has itself raised concerns about gentrification, while the Midtown Redevelopment Authority's construction of an office tower with funding meant for affordable housing has frustrated community leaders. Urban revitalization is meant to bring benefits to economically challenged areas like the Third Ward, but the degree to which those benefits reach the existing community remains an issue of concern. Joining me today to discuss this is Alisha Small, scholar for economic growth at the Baker Institute and the author of a recent report on the past 2 decades of urban revitalization in Third Ward. A Rice University alum, she has spent over 15 years as an economist with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, measuring labor costs and employment cost trends. Her work is focused on collecting and analyzing data for the Employment Cost Index and the Employee Benefits Survey, among others, fostering interactions with hundreds of businesses across the country. Today, we're discussing Alisha's recent research and more specifically, how urban revitalization is impacting small businesses in Houston's Third Ward. I'm David Satterfield, director of Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy in Houston, Texas, and this is Baker Briefing. Alisha, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
This survey has done some very important work in directly going to the stakeholders in Third Ward, talking to them to see how events in the city are impacting. For those of our viewers who are perhaps not from Houston, but are interested in economic revitalization, can you give us a rundown, a summary of revitalization programs that have been carried out in the Third Ward? Have they been successful?
Well, Ambassador, I would just like to start out by saying thank you for having me here today and to have the opportunity to share about the research. What I have found is that there have been about 5 specific revitalization programs that have all been linked inside my paper, which span from about 1999 to 2021. One of those significant developments was with Third Ward Community Development Corporation, which was organized back in 1995 by leaders of the historic Greater Zion Missionary Baptist Church. And it was really organized because concerned residents in the neighborhood wanted to revitalize one of Houston's historical districts. And that was the northern section of Third Ward. So they received a grant, and that mission really was to provide quality, affordable housing and to increase community pride and promote community economic development and really to sustain the community. And then an outgrowth of that was that there is this rich history that wanted to be preserved as well in the community. So that was a very residential focused type of development. All right. And then moving forward to 2017, another initiative began under the last mayoral administration, and that was the Third Ward Complete Communities. Now, again, there are some other initiatives in between, but this most recent really had the goals of sufficient quality, affordable housing throughout the neighborhood, quality learning opportunities from early childhood onwards, and then job opportunities that would support a good standard of living, and financial stability and a safe and secure community, again, for residents. And to give just a little bit of a progress report, there was a report that was given in July 2023, which stated that this Third Ward Complete Community Plan had actually achieved about 70% completion based on their goals, okay? And one of them within those broad set of goals was the Education and Economy and Jobs Initiative. And they showed back in 2023, 88% completeness. So there's also a part of it that was mobility and infrastructure, which was about 77% based on their completion. And then civic engagement, health, housing, parks, and community, where they noted that it needed additional support. So that is just to give you a summary of development that has occurred within that time period. But the purpose of this research, community engaged research, was to focus on the perceptions of the business owners, which is a unique perspective that is typically not observed in economic development. It's mostly about residences and residents. So that was where this research came into play. And in that, we found that there is a question you said of either success or not success, right? Well, I want to let you know that that is a difficult question for me to answer. And so, again, the purpose of the research was to see how the small business owners in the community viewed their input within these different programs that were being pursued. And most of the responses indicated the owners were not aware of these revitalization programs. Now, that's a big statement because you have to realize development is happening, right? And if you want to define success as each program reaching its individual goals, I cannot say one or the other. But what I can say is that there is a clear difference between how the Third Ward looked in 2000 or 1999 versus what it looks like today and when this paper was released. And I can also say that from the business owners, this study revealed that most were not aware of these programs at the time that they were occurring.
Now, Alisha, the data from your working paper in the survey shows Third Ward began to show economic decline starting in 2017. In contrast to the growth elsewhere in Houston as a whole until 2021. And your paper points out communities like Third Ward can't be just left behind by the rest of the city. What policies or initiatives have been tried, which have, and I'll go to the issue of success, what's been the success rate of what's been attempted in Third Ward? What needs to be done now to produce sustained economic growth in the ward?
Well, again, as I referenced earlier, the progress report that they did in 2023 leads us to see where that progress has made, right? Based on
And where has it been made?
So when you say where locationally, or you mean as far as
overall, what's worked in the Third Ward?
So what works is involving the community members. And they have had certain programs through the Economic Development Corporation. The Emancipation Economic Development Corporation offers programs. Another aspect of programs that are offered are entrepreneurial courses through the Small Business Administration. I myself, during the research, was able to participate in some of these and observe what active business representatives from the Small Business Administration are attempting to do to try to engage business owners. But there must be reciprocal as well, right? Business owners must attend, they must take part in it, but there is definitely an initiative to do that. On top of that, the Greater Southeast Management District, which served as a partner with my research, they hold many women-owned business courses and different luncheons to bring people in, business owners into the community, right? Lunchtime is a good time to reach sometimes business owners who have a busy day. The point is that there are different initiatives going on as far as bringing in education to develop entrepreneurs and make sure that they know what economic resources, capital resources are available. But one issue is the uptake, which I do talk about in the paper, and whether or not the actual business owners are getting enough information. Is it being marketed enough? And whether or not business owners actually choose to participate in this, to take the time out.
So, Alisha, it would seem there's a gap here.
Right.
Your survey shows, and you referenced it, that almost 2/3 of Third Ward business owners either didn't know or didn't agree that their input that they gave was reflected by community planners, that they were not aware of public meetings where they could make their voices heard. Now, how do you make sense of this gap? And what does it say about the program overall of economic revitalization?
What I say about this gap is the reason why the research that I did was done the way it was done, which is called community engagement. Community participatory research. So starting with the business owners first in the decision-making process prior to doing the development plans. So that is the cornerstone of this project, that community participatory portion of it, because if we don't know what business owners really need, then we can't address the needs, right? And so I think that that's one of the gaps, is that things can be decided upon. And even if there are programs to relay this information, to have these initiatives, to have community gatherings and to have these listening sessions, there needs to be a real connection with the stakeholders.
So, Alisha, given the history of revitalization efforts that you cite, what went wrong? Did they not have an accurate catalog of businesses? Did they elect not to reach out to a representative number of businesses? What happened here?
Well, I would have to say that, again, the research focused on a group that decided to respond to this research, okay? So I can only give feedback based on the feedback that was given to me. And that was the purpose of this, is to only share and not to make any inferences based on what I may think, but let's do inferences based on what they have provided and make some recommendations based on that. And some of those recommendations that they shared were a third ward chamber of commerce to be developed. They also shared a more concerted effort within the community by investors, by banks, to showcase what capital is available to them, what resources are available. We did have focus groups. And in those focus groups, I actually had a respondent say that they had reached out to a local bank, even within the community, but yet was turned to the SBA office, whether at the Houston level or the national level. So what I'm trying to say is there is a lack of information from the perspective of the business owners that is being shared or not shared.
Alisha, as a result of your work, is there a reason why commonly applied tools like local chambers of commerce, banking societies or collectives haven't been done in the third ward?
Good question. And I think that is one of the reasons why this work has an opportunity to assist in helping to make that happen. That is the hope. I serve as a mouthpiece is what I want to be. And so I think that that is what the goal of this, and to listen to what they have asked for. Because yes, a neighboring community, which is Second Ward, has an East End Chamber of Commerce, yet Third Ward does not.
And I find that exceptional because the challenges in Second Ward aren't all that different from the challenges in Third Ward. Yet there's a difference here. Now, whose responsibility is it? Just focus on the Chamber of Commerce issue. Is that the mayor's office? Does it get generated from the ward itself? Who puts it together?
It is definitely generated from the ward itself and business owners who want to collaborate with city officials. And I have had the opportunity to step into Second Ward as well. That was also a part of this research project at a certain level. And so there is a unification with council members, with business owners. And that same kind of unification would be greatly appreciated by business owners within the Third Ward, because this was something that came out in a focus group. This was not something that was even asked in the survey. So this was something that was a piece of information gathered by talking to the business owners directly. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is that it takes a unification of all stakeholders, those who have the resources to make the final decisions and to put those decisions forward. But again, with those who, in fact, those decisions and policies will affect.
Can the mayor's office lead on this?
I believe so. I believe just like the mayor's office led on the Third Ward Complete Communities project, then they can also have that opportunity. I think that institutions within the proximity of Third Ward have the ability as well to be a part of this and be a mediator or bring things to happen. And that's why I talk about in the paper about educational programs, because that was something that they asked for as well. They asked for educational, entrepreneurial courses. And I do know of one in particular at the University of Houston where I was able to attend the graduation ceremony in the course of my research, the SURE program. And what a delight to see these young entrepreneurs showcase the learning that they received in a very short amount of time, and then also to showcase the businesses that they have and how they plan to impact their communities with their businesses. So that is just another example of how I think that policymakers are at the city level, the county level, the national level, but even inside a corporation, we have those who make policies. Within every institution, there's somebody who creates policy. So if we think more broadly and in that interdependence mindset, we see that we have the opportunity to invest in those that may need special investment or have a request for that.
As a consequence of your research and your direct contacts, do you see efforts being undertaken either at the local Third Ward business community level or the mayor's office from above to put some of these institutions like a Chamber of Commerce in place? Is there something concrete that's happening now that wasn't before?
I cannot say that. Now, my results are just now being released this month. The hope is that the research can serve as an impetus to those types of policies. That was the purpose of it. Research takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, right? And so this was about a 2.5-year process of going to respondents, talking to them through meetings, and of course, the survey. So all of these pieces come together and now are at a place where hopefully they can serve as a recommendation to how we can move forward to meet the goals of business owners, meet the requests of business owners.
We focused on entrepreneurship and educating young entrepreneurs. Let's talk about the credit system. Is there, as a result of the responses you got, indicators you think are credible regarding discrimination in the loan or credit process, race, gender, ethnicity? What do they show about broader across Houston inequities in terms of access to capital?
Well, again, I will focus on the third ward community from which I gained perspectives. And I'll give you this. This is what was shared with me. And I have a few quotes to share because I think that they really resonate and share what their perceptions of inequities or needs are. One of those things that was shared, again, in a focus group, was that there is a sort of discrimination based on the location of the business, more than it was about the race, which to me was intriguing to find that. They did not report race as something that was discriminatory, but rather being located in Third Ward. It also brought out a point that there was predatory lending practices because of their location. Once the lender knew that the location was in the community specifically, then the offerings of interest rates were much higher than normal. And I think that that speaks to their perspective of inequities. I really appreciated the honesty of the business owners when it came to the access to capital. Like I mentioned before, someone mentioned that trying to apply for a loan in the local neighborhood bank, that they were turned away. So there is some sort of disconnect even with the idea of receiving a loan and applying for the loan. And then also the aspect of their reliance on their personal finances to run their business.
And your survey had what to me was an exceptional finding, which is almost 60% of Third Ward business owners relied on personal funds to start their businesses. And just under half said it was hard to acquire lines of credit because of location. That is an exceptional draw on limited personal resources.
Yes.
And it's a limiter on overall business growth and thus community growth.
That's correct. And it goes back to the thought of it's better to have your money work for you than you to have to really work for that money, right? And I think that investment is definitely lacking for the business owners. And they really spoke to the idea of investors coming in and sharing more opportunities, that concerted effort that I mentioned earlier, to collaborate and share what are the opportunities for them. They felt that they were somehow not receiving enough information about that.
Alisha, let's look at some macro issues here, which certainly Third Ward, perhaps Second Ward, present as they do across the country in similar situations. The phenomenon of gentrification and population staying in the area or flowing out of the area. And I'll ask you about the second first. How's the population of Third Ward been over the last decade? Stable? Decreasing? What are the numbers?
The population is definitely increasing because there's an influx of people who before did not live within the community. So the demographics is definitely changing. This was a historical African-American community for many years. And prior to that, it was a Jewish community. We know that neighborhoods change over time. The difference is that there has been a long-standing time period where African-Americans were there. And on top of that, we see businesses over time have diminished in certain aspects. There was even a point where you could say that the neighborhood was in a period of disinvestment. And so in 1999, that is really, from my research, a critical point where you saw a lot of change happen, a lot of initiatives to start this process of redeveloping. And again, I mentioned that. And
was this tied to historic Black business owners, Black community moving out and new communities coming in?
Well, at that point, and I remember that, those are my first years here at this university, that point, the community was majority African American. And as I told you before, there was an initiative in the church where it started, and then it grew into more opportunity. And I think that as each initiative developed, again, the community is getting more money, more economic resources, And there's that opportunity for others to take advantage of that. The other thing is we have to talk about what you mentioned was the influx, outflux. Well, over time, we know that one of the reasons gentrification is so in demand or it's happening is because people want to live closer to the downtown. They want to be able to take part in downtown activities. And it used to be that this was a community that was not in high demand. Yet now, because people want to move, let's say, out of the suburbs into the Houston area, they want to be close to where things are, and young people especially. And so, yes, there is a change in the demographics. There's an influx of people, and that can sometimes displace others.
Absolutely. Raises the cost of housing.
Correct.
Yes, it brings business in.
Yes, it
brings
does.
Investment. But who is benefiting from the investment and who can no longer afford to stay to try to take advantage of that increased investment?
There you go. And when you talk about that perspective, that is a residential perspective, but it's also a business perspective because that was something that came out in the research. Higher rental rates or higher property taxes, right? So all of those things impact businesses. I can actually say that while I was performing this research, I know of 2 businesses that were lively, and they were Black-owned businesses that have closed at this point. One had to move out and did not succeed in the neighboring neighborhood, which was Sunnyside. And the other business has just completely closed, which was quite a shock. And so what I want to say is that change can be good. Development can be good and is good, especially if it's to promote the growth of the economy, create jobs. But we need to make sure, like you just mentioned, that it is inclusive. And what are the benefits to those who exist within that community? Again, that goes back to this type of research. It is to have community benefits. And you speak of the ION, you brought that up. Yes, there are development initiatives that have occurred even with STEM, right? Even by the university. But being careful to make sure that the community can also share that same delight and joy that these are opening. I'm not going to say that that's an easy task. Believe me, I know that there's initiatives that have been done even with the ION, yet the perception is not always positive. And I think if we tried our best to start with the community and build relationships, and that's really important, building relationships, it's more than just going to someone and starting something and saying, hey, we have these plans. What do you think about it? It is about actual engagement. Let me get to know you. Let me talk to you. What are your issues? And actually caring about that. Integrity. And that was something that I really wanted to display in this research and build great partnerships. And I hope that when they think of this research, that they recognize the Baker Institute as something that had something positive to give back within the community. That was a major goal of this, that leaving a legacy of long-standing, sustainable relationships as well. Not just about we're here to get the work and then we're out. No, we want to have a relationship because who can really have a good relationship if you don't spend time with someone?
Absolutely. Alisha, final question. You've also worked, as you noted, in Second Ward. How's Second Ward doing?
You know, I will honestly say that I've perceived a contrast between the two at this point as far as the development. And there is actually new development on the rise. And so I hope to be able to continue at some level research within the Second Ward because there is a new Bayou project, let's say, that will be impacting many residents. And I will say in the amount of time that I have spent there, I have learned similar issues, rising property rates for residents, right? Because that's going to happen alongside this research, even though it's focused on businesses. You're going to hear about the residents because they're a part of the community. They're foundational, right? But there's also this idea of business owners looking forward to the new. And I think that's the same with Third Ward as well. There is a sense of looking forward to new development. But the question is, can we all be included in that? And that people are not left out. And that's one of the reasons why the paper was called The Interdependence of the Developed and the Developing.
Thank you, Alisha.
May I share one more thing?
Please.
Okay. The one thing that I wanted to leave you with, because I want to leave this on a positive note, 21% of the business owners did actually agree that they were included in this. So that's something. and 33% felt that they were actually aware of this development. So I don't want to leave that behind. I want to leave on that note. And I also want to say something that has great meaning to me as I conducted this research. I am a native Houstonian, and I've seen the changes over time. So my community partner, Shape Community Center, they have a motto, and I hold it close to this research that it says, there's no me without you, no you without me. We are all a part of a circle of interdependence. And that is why, again, this research really wanted to focus on interdependence of the developed and the developing. So thank you so much.
Great. For our listeners, if you're interested in reading Alisha's report on urban revitalization and small business in the Third Ward, a link is available in the show notes. Baker Briefing is brought to you by the Baker Institute for Public Policy, which provides meaningful, nonpartisan policy analysis on the most critical challenges facing the United States, Texas, and the world. This episode was produced by Karina Zamel with support from Sammy Bike. AV production was led by Kevin Young. Be sure to visit us at bakerinstitute.org to learn more. Thank you for listening.